bit about what you're up to at Sharethrough?
Sure. Do I get to hold the mic myself? So started Sharethrough 4 or 5 years ago, San Francisco-based tech company with about 100 employees now. The idea of Sharethrough, take it back to sort of the first principle. We're looking at sort of the major platforms of record on the web, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the YouTubes, the Pinterests, who are saying, how do I monetize my sites in this sort of new day and age? It's not banner ads, it's not pre-rolls, it's not pop-ups, it's not anything annoying. They're doing what essentially they're calling native advertising. It's native to the form, the function, the look and feel of the site. And so what Sharethrough is doing is bringing that same native ad format and that native ad technology to the rest of the internet, to like people.com and Time and Hearst and Gannett and New York Times, sites like that. We essentially bring that native monetization capability from a Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, but into the sort of more traditional world of publishing.
Okay. So
I'll interview her now.
So native advertising is definitely a big buzzword right now, and you had your summit a couple weeks ago where there was an entire panel devoted to defining native advertising. Yep. How do you define native advertising?
We can swap here. I define it as essentially taking whatever like the core form or function of the site is and using that to define the advertising that shows up on the site. So on a YouTube, a native ad format is a promoted video. On Twitter, the native content unit is a tweet. The native ad format is a promoted tweet. I think branded content and native advertising are two sides of the same coin. That the branded content, you have to start with content before you talk about anything native. If you're trying to push like a traditional Netflix ad, buy Netflix now through a native ad format, it totally fails. And so you have to have branded content, and then you can use native ad formats to scale it beyond just the walled gardens of whatever platform you started on.
Let's talk a little bit about this leaderboard that you launched. So Sharethrough just launched a leaderboard in partnership with Simple Reach, and tell us a little bit about how it works.
Sure. So if content is at the core of native, and if native as a movement only works if content is actually good, what we wanted to do is essentially build a ComScore type leaderboard, like a ranking chart of all the best branded content that's ever existed and exists now in real time. So the idea of it is that it's essentially like a weekly, daily, real-time chart of all the branded content on the web, sorted by shareability, sorted by Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn shares, and then sliceable by industry. The idea of sharing too is that if there's a bunch of engagement metrics, and engagement's kind of a buzzword, but sharing is the most tacit way of just saying this is good. Like a share, not everyone's going to share. Yeah, it's a tacit endorsement, and it's a clear endorsement. And so even if not everyone shares it, if you have 10,000 people share something organically for no reason other than they want to, it's probably because it was just really good. And so you can sort this all by social activity or sharing. That's a way of culling out what the best content is and giving it some sort of value.
What kind of trends are you seeing at South by right now?
I've always been really interested in behavior change and behavior design. I did research at Stanford in the persuasive technology lab, which was kind of way before its time. The thesis of the lab was that computers can persuade humans to change behavior, which now we all take for granted, but I think 5, 6, 7 years ago was kind of a radical thought, or at least a questionable thought. So I've seen a lot of that here, and I think you see a lot of it through the like quantified self movement of Nike wristbands and apps that track your weight, things like that. To me, it's about like, how do you take that traditional human-to-human persuasion of getting somebody to do something and replace one of those humans with a computer and see what still works? And if there's persuasion strategies that still work, those are the things that personally get me excited. So when I look at apps and companies at South by, like, that's the lens that I'm looking at it through.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for being a part of our custom content video program. This is a very meta interview.
Very meta, yes.
Thank you for being with us.